Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry we got minutes late again. We'll get started. Today's October 30th. Good afternoon. Hope you had all a great Diwali as well. I'll quickly introduce who we are and what we do. Do we have any new members in the session today who are attending it for the first time? If you can please respond over the chat, that'll be great. Okay. Welcome, Deepak. Anyone else besides Deepak who's attending our session for the first time? Okay, great. Okay, I'll quickly introduce ourselves for the newcomers. So welcome again. My name is Dr. Mukesh Motwani. Today is our fourth session of AWS Cloud Fundamentals. Uh, and I would like to quickly introduce what is the objective for arranging these series: Learn, Earn, Train, and Serve. We are a nonprofit organization with the sole objective of living happy, peaceful life built on the principles of universal brotherhood. And what we've learned is that the key to a peaceful, happy life is the knowledge to understand how our mind works, or we call it as the inner technology or IT of the mind. We want to extend the same principle to our careers as well, where we have a peaceful IT career life as well. And the key to having that peace is being knowledgeable. So that way we have options, better options to make our IT career more successful. Sometimes we may not have peace of mind in our current job because of our manager, because of the economy, of what's coming up. We want to make sure you're well placed and knowledgeable enough so that no matter what, how testing and how trying the current or the future times are, you are always knowledgeable and immune to those changes in the economy, changes in the job situations, and so on. We also want to make sure this session is also equally valuable for students who don't have much knowledge. So that's why in these sessions, we have a part of the sessions dedicated for career planning, which will definitely help newcomers who are early in their career path and want to progress ahead. We want to make sure they understand what choices they have and they can make better decisions then. All our sessions are totally free of cost. There is no money charged ever because education is not our business. And we truly believe, passionately believe, that we have to contribute to the community and help in healthy, better lives for our society. Uh, this session is on AWS, but do plan to cover additional sessions related with big data, project management, system integration, CRM, and many various other topics. What is more important for us that these topics benefit you. So your feedback is very important. Our sessions are very interactive in nature. You can post a question while the presenter is talking as well. And we have a team of panelists, a lot of senior panelists, PhDs as well, who would be responding over the chat as well. And at the end of the session, we have a feedback form. We strongly encourage you to please fill that feedback form so that way we can adapt and listen to you and make sure we are providing value to you to make sure your time is rewarded with all the new learnings as well. So please ask as many questions. Do not hesitate to ask questions, and we'll try to address as many as we can. With that said, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Prashant. He's been working with AWS. He's got certification and he's got a wealth of knowledge as well. And we'll start with a quick mind relaxation technique by one of our other panelists as well, Dr. Raki as well. She will help us how to start with a relaxed mind. That way we can absorb more and be able to learn as much as possible. Dr. Raki is also a member of our Rajyoga Education Foundation ITWing. So if Dr. Raki, you can help us learn something new in a very short time, maybe around 5 minutes, on how to relax our mind so that we can not only learn, but we can retain better what we are going to learn today about networking. Thank you, Dr. Aki.
Thank you, Mukesh. Let's sit back, relax, and just observe the mind. Full attention on observing what we are thinking, what thoughts are coming. If we give the energy of our attention to any thought, it will bring our state down. If we simply observe, just simply observe, relax, and simply observe what thoughts are coming to the mind. Attention is only on observing, not on the thoughts. And if this feels heavy, then drop it. Drop all activities of the mind. Drop the observation, drop the attention, just drop everything. Nothing is important to hold on to. Nothing. The one and only thing that is important for every living being is a state of peace and happiness. If that is being lost at any moment, drop the things that are causing to lose it. Anything that we get connected to will fluctuate our state of mind sooner or later. Take us into a state of ecstasy or stress or agitation or confusion, anxiety, or we have the choice to not give it importance, drop it, and give importance to our state of peace and happiness. The utmost importance in life is my inner stable state of peace and my inner happiness. Everything else has no importance if I'm losing the two valuable qualities in my day-to-day living. And come to think of it, every life's pursuit, whether career, profession, relation, possessions, every pursuit of life, the attainment and the motivation for it, even success, at the end of the day is happiness. Why take the long route for happiness? Why chase it after things that are not in our control? Let's learn to keep a very safe distance between what we want and what we truly are. We are beings of peace and inner happiness. That's our natural state. And we can only experience that if we do not give importance to external connections from where we derive our happiness. Let's just relax, enjoy the session, and give importance to how we feel, not what we want. Dropping everything, all desires, all aspirations, all aims, and the largest, single most foremost objective in life is my inner state of highest silence and happiness, the sole purpose of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raki. Thank you very much for making us be not distracted by all the thoughts running in our mind, and we are just now focused on this session. So today, Prashant is going to talk about networking, but before that,
Dr. Mukesh, we're not able to hear. Yeah.
is this any better now?
Yeah, we can hear now, but it's kind of echoing from somewhere.
Shouldn't echo anymore. Okay. Uh, so so just repeat again. Apologies for audio issues. So the whole purpose of IT is to help business be more successful, whether targeting more customers or improving the experience of their customers. And customers could be a retail customer, a business to business customer, the internal users as well, or the vendors and suppliers. So IT is helping business be able to innovate with new products, help in automation to reduce cost as well. And in order to do all of those things, uh, IT has different components to it, or we can say different layers to it. So the topmost layer is the presentation layers, where there are a lot of solutions which help in managing those objectives. So one of the most common tools, no matter what type of company it is,
Dr. Mukesh,
there is a
we are not
CRM,
able to see your
customer
screen.
relationship. Are you able to see the screen?
It's showing completely white, but no content.
Okay, let me stop
You might want
sharing.
to reshare.
Yes, maybe when I switched it did that. Just a minute again. I'm just rejoining again. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Of waiting and thinking and getting annoyed, let's take these few moments to just relax and enjoy our inner state of peace. Let's disconnect from what's happening in the session, from everything that happened throughout the day. Go into just deep silence. Let's just experience what silence is. Disconnections from external aspects. Emptiness from everything. In the present moment, empty from the past, empty from the aspirations and worries of the future, empty from everything. Drop everything that we've held on to for years. Drop it in a second. Be empty. Be light. We have the power to drop. Let's not exercise power in the wrong way to chase. Let's not follow the mind. Let's just drop it. Not give it importance. External disturbances should not affect our inner state, stable state, our natural state. There's no effort to feel the state. We are naturally in silence. We can tap into the state anytime by dropping everything that we've held on to. Simply drop it. Leave everything behind. Just being empty. Thank you.
Is everyone able to see
We
the
can see
screen
the
now?
slides now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rocky. So I was just talking that, the whole purpose of IT is to help business, make sure that, we are increasing the business by adding more customers, making sure they have a better experience, and also be able to support in agility and cost savings by automating a lot of the business processes as well. So there are a lot of software packages that are used in IT. One of the most common one is customer relationship management, or CRM, and that's used to manage our relationship with the customers. But there's a lot more in IT. We have a lot of systems, and we want to bring in that data from those multiple systems on a common platform so we can do reporting and analytics. So there are different techniques and tools to be able to bring in data from multiple systems, such as CRM system and our backend systems. Backend systems are the core IT systems which are powering the functionality of the business. One of the most common backend systems is an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. These softwares are commonly used for supply chain to make sure you understand your vendors, what products have been sold, what is the inventory, how much is the stock left, how much we should plan ahead and stock in advance. All that is managed within an ERP software such as SAP. So there's a lot of data in different systems, and there's a need to bring it into a common platform for data warehousing and so on, and a lot of data in databases as well. So that's where the data analytics comes in. But all these IT systems, they need to be hosted on a server, because IT has two components, a hardware and a software. The hardware is the physical bare metal server on which that software is installed. So previously it used to be on-premise within the company's premise. We would have all these big servers. But now with the advent of public clouds such as AWS and Azure, it's common to deploy all these services on the cloud. So we are focusing how to configure the cloud, how to use the services in the cloud to be able to support all this IT functionality, because all these IT systems can be put on the cloud as well. So you're focusing on the public cloud, but there's security as well in every layer of the IT landscape. We have to make sure it's secure. We have to make sure all this deployment of the code and everything is done in an automated way for agility. That's where DevOps come in. So these are some of the big pieces in IT landscape. Okay. What is important for us is knowing what are the different roles that are there in IT. And that is solely determined based on the project life cycle in an IT. So typically what would happen is we would have a requirement phase. So anything, a new business functionality needs to be added. Let's say a new product is to be launched. So in that case, we will create an IT project. And every IT project will have a phases for it. And corresponding to these phases, we have different roles, IT roles aligned with them. So we'll have a requirement phase where we collect all the requirements. And typically, the person who's responsible for collecting requirements is a business analyst. And there are different types of analysts. You could be a system analyst who's focused on just collecting requirements to a specific system, such as SAP or Salesforce, where you know that system well and you're asking the right questions to be able to collect the new requirements or whatever changes that need to be done in the system. Most of these type of jobs, they don't require any programming knowledge as such. It's always good to know one programming language, but you just need to know Excel. And there are different tools as well nowadays because we are using more agile project management methodology. So a lot of this information is just captured on Confluence and different softwares to do that. But even with little or no programming experience, you can still be part of the IT landscape by playing the role of a business analyst. And there are different types of analyst as well. You could be analyzing just the front end. So you could be a user experience or UX analyst, or you could be analyzing the different integration or interfaces between the systems, which would be what an integration analyst does. So on, you could be a security analyst looking at log files and knowing if there's a breach or if anything happened, or you could be analyzing the data to make sure it's good quality. But one of the highest paying jobs in this project's life cycle, and the most important role, is for an architect. That's why it's one of the highest paying jobs. And another reason why it's highest paying job is because it's quite vast. As you can see, there are different layers to IT. Corresponding to those different layers, you have different types of architects as well. So if you're someone who understands the infrastructure really well, then you would be an infrastructure architect. Or you are someone who knows cloud well. So most of you on this session, you would want to aspire to be a cloud architect. Or you could be just focused on security. AWS has a lot of security related certification. So you could be an AWS security architect, or you could be a data architect, integration architect, and so on. And a solution architect is another type of architect who brings all these architects together to make sure we have a solution and all those requirements are met. And there's an enterprise architect. We'll go into the depth of these roles more later, but just want to throw out the different types of architects and why architects are the most highest paid among the other roles. There are developers who actually do development depending on type of programming language, whether it's .NET or Python or Java, or cloud developer. You're developing serverless computing Lambda functions, and you're testing it as well. And then you could be a DevOps engineer who's deploying all that code and building pipelines to do it in an automated way. Testing, unfortunately, is one of the least paid relatively as compared to other roles, and so are the support roles like database admin and so on. So this is just the whole gamut. We didn't cover anything related with project management because a project management office, we call it as a PMO, has a project manager who's managing the multiple phases of this project and making sure that the business analysts, the architects, the developers, they're all aligned and working as a team to meet those objectives. So hopefully you found this session information. Sorry again for the audio issues and getting delayed. But this will move on to the next section. We'll move on to the next module of our session, where Prashant will be talking about networking. And the reason why networking is very important is because from a security perspective, we always want to protect our network. Network is nothing but, let's say, we have an organization, we have all these servers. We want to make sure only our internal employees can access those servers. And one of the key principles of security is defense in depth. The logic is very similar. If you have a house, right, and if you have a very lot of valuables within your house, just like the valuable data and all the proprietary confidential information we have within the organization, similarly, if you have valuables within the house, you're just not going to put a lock. You're going to have a main door lock. You're going to have a perimeter. You will have a watchman at the front as well. So if someone reaches through the watchman, you have enough time to call the police, because they'll have to break in through another door. Then they'll have to find the safe and they'll have to break in through that lock safe as well. So that buys you time to react accordingly. Similar concept in IT as well. We have multiple layers as well. And in order to break through those layers for the hacker or the malicious user to get to the data, there are multiple layers of security involved. And the way to achieve or have those multiple layers is we segregate or separate our internal network, which is protected from the outside world. Within the internal network, we segregate it as well. So we'll have an internal network which has multiple networks within it. So we call that as network segmentation. So you will have database in a separate segment. You will have your web services, those presentation layers, right, in another segment. So if your web server, which is facing anything which is facing the user, is breached, then we can make sure the blast radius or the impact of that breach is just limited to the presentation layer. But if anything is breached in the integration layer, then we can make sure the rest of the layers are protected. So in this diagram, the presentation would be in a separate network within our internal network. Integration could be in a separate network. The data could be in a separate network. So even if this layer is breached, you still have other two layers to breach, because this data is the most valuable part of the organization. So what Prashant is going to cover is how to create these virtual private clouds or VPCs or these segments within the network. And the concept is uniform, not just for AWS, but it extends and applies to Azure as well. So that's why you hear VNets in Azure, but it's the same thing as VPC in AWS. So with that, I'll hand it over to Prashant to help us learn more about some of these basics of networking, because we know why it is so important for writing secure, building secure solutions, how to segment the network, what are the different addresses and everything. So Prashant, if you can teach us more about networking and do some labs, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh. First of all, thank you very much for showcasing all these important details to the audience. I hope the audience must have found this very, very useful. So I will be sharing my screen now. Let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So let's start with the today's AWS topic, which is where we are going to talk upon the networking portion, like generally how networking is done in traditional IT computing and what is the difference over cloud computing and setting up your networks architectures on AWS Cloud. So we are going to look upon that going forward, and we are going to cover all the networking components and features, functionalities that AWS provides for customers so that you can establish a very strong or secured and with like whatever you can do in a traditional IT environment, you can do more, and over and above that, you can have more security and more functionality enabled on cloud. So we are going to discuss upon all of that today. But before I go into the technicalities of the cloud networking, I would just take a couple of minutes to give you an overview about how should you approach this networking or any technology that you want to learn. So before we learn the technology, I would just request you all to look for the real life inspiration that connects well with that technology, because every technology has its inspiration defined from a real life scenario or any real life model, right? So similarly, today we are going to see all of these components which are related to networking. We'll look upon a real life model and then we'll go to the actual AWS Cloud Console and perform the labs. And that is how you are going to be able to connect better to these networking components. So we are going to cover networks and subnets today. We'll look how classless IP addressing is done in cloud. And then we are going to look what are gateways and route table and how do we set up them. Then we'll look upon the cloud firewalls, which is stateless firewalls and stateful firewalls, one of them being network access control list. And then we are going to see what is VPC peering and how that can help us. And at last, we are going to like discuss some details upon the virtual private network and VPN tunnels as well. So starting with the presentation, what is a network? So basically, before like defining a network in terms of cloud or IT, let's see what basically is a network. A network is something which connects a source and a destination by any medium or a pathway, right? So when we say that a computer is connected to another computer, it could be by any medium or any cable. Is my voice audible properly? Or anybody facing any issues? I hope it should be. Yeah, okay, good. So when we say a computer is connected to another computer via cable, it means that it is a network, right? Because a source computer can talk to a destination computer through that medium. So that becomes a short network. But when millions of computers are somehow connected to each other through cables or optical fibers or even wireless medium across the world, that becomes internet, which becomes a global network, right? So that is a network. Now let's understand, why do we need a network? We need a network so that we can communicate, we can exchange, we can do some transportation or share and exchange information. So why do I have this slide here? Because whenever we have to transport something, then we kind of attach a sticker to that package and kind of mention the address. Similarly, the same thing is done on the network that we use in our IT networking. Like there is a OSI model under which there are 7 different layers. And if you know that under the transportation layer, a header and a footer is assigned. So header is nothing but just kind of a categorization of that particular address, which based upon which the destination is going to identify, going to categorize that particular package into the area that it belongs, right? So the main purpose of a network is to be able to communicate and transport the information packets or packages that we basically need to perform the communication over a network. So just like we have this real life network of roads, and you see that there are highways and there are automobiles traveling over the roads, right? So just like this network, you see that you can consider these cars or automobiles just as your information packets, and they are going from a source location to a destination location using this path. Now, if you will look at the second image, this is just a representation of internet, like how we are connected to millions and millions of computers across the world, and a lots of information just like these cars are traveling through this network to various different computers, various different devices that are there in the across the globe, and we are doing a lot of transactions, lot of communication is happening, lot of transportation of information is happening. So there are a lot of different things. So uh, when we connect both of these together, the real life scenario is very much compatible with what we see on the right, which is the internet global network. Now, if I were to explain you what does a router do, and if I were to explain you that technically, I might waste a lot of time, right? But if you can understand this image, you will get the concept within a span of a few seconds that what does a router do and what is basically routing. So a router only routes your traffic where it is supposed to go. And that is what we write route tables in AWS Cloud for. So if I have to go to Chandigarh and I must take a right turn, then it is the responsibility of the route table or router that my traffic gets directed to the right. And if I were to go to Ludhiana, then it is the responsibility of the route table to direct my traffic towards straight, to not let my deviation go left or right. So based upon the rules that I configure in my route table, my traffic is getting directed. So that is the concept behind routing. So that is known as routing. Okay. Now let's come to one of the most important component of cloud networking, which is stateless firewalls. And in AWS, we call them network access control list. And there is no difference between a stateless firewall and a security guard that takes care of your entire society on that particular gate. Why I'm saying so? Because as you go by the name network access control list, so generally security guards will have their register with them, and whenever there are people coming from outside world to the inside societies, maybe you're staying in some apartment and you must have already seen that. So they will check the register and identify if that particular person, who could be a maid or a laundry person, is allowed in that apartment or in that society or not. If he is not allowed there, he will deny the traffic straight away. And if there is an entry for that particular kind of traffic, that okay, this maid is supposed to go to that particular apartment and she has access to that, he will allow. So network access control list are stateless firewalls on AWS Cloud, which basically takes care that only the traffic that is supposed to come within is coming within, and all other traffic that is not supposed to come is being dropped. So if you look at this particular image, you will be able to see some of the rules. And how network access control list works is we assign a priority to each and every rule. So you'll be able to see that first of all, we are allowing HTTP traffic, and where the protocol is TCP and AT, and we are opening it for everybody. So whenever the security guard will see, okay, this is the highest priority traffic and this particular person is coming, he will straight away allow that. And then we have configured another rule which is of a lower priority, which is SSH traffic for port 22, but not for internet. See, this particular code is for internet. This is for a particular network. So any person who is belonging to this particular network will only be allowed entry to that society, and no other person outside from this network will get access to that society. So this is how this stateless firewall takes care of your entire cloud network, that only the traffic that is supposed to come within is coming within, and all the other illicit traffic that is trying to attack or do some kind of malicious activity within is straight away denied. Let's come forward and look at one of the other component of AWS networking, which is virtual private network. So what is a virtual private network, and why do I show you a tunnel here? So uh, if I were to tell you that during ancient times, like if you go to Greece, there used to be like huge kingdoms, and they used to have these tunnels from kingdom connecting to another kingdom, another fort in the same kingdom, and that used to be very, very private and secure. Only the important people in that kingdom would have access to that tunnel, and they were used for only some kind of evacuation process or to transfer their money or gold. So it was used for a very secure purpose. Similarly, on cloud, we have a similar concept which is known as VPN tunnels. Now, what is a VPN tunnel? For example, you are a startup and you are coming on cloud from a data center. So now you are still partially operating your data center as well as you are operating your resources on AWS Cloud, but you want to ensure that you are connected to both of them securely and privately so that no other entity is able to intervene within. So we establish virtual tunnels between your data center, or it could be your employee location, which could be office, to AWS, and which is a kind of encrypted tunnel through which the important communication and information is transferred from source and destination. So it is similar to that, and where we have two types of VPN connections generally, which is site to site. So site to site means that for example, your entire office can connect to AWS through that tunnel. But the other option is client to site, where you do not want to set up tunnel for your complete office, and you only want that one or two people within your office are important, and they are okay to get access to the tunnel and communicate to AWS resources. So then in that case, you will only assign VPN tunnels to for a single employee or multiple employees who are crucial for that role, and they will be able to access and no other person. So that is about the VPN tunnel. And now let's look at the concept, which is uh, what is classless inter-domain routing. So just to give you a background about CIDR, like in traditional IT computing, we used to have classful IP addressing, wherein we will have various classes of IP addresses, and they would be like class A, class B, class C, class D, and class E. And the concept was such that the segregation was not evenly distributed. And the last class D and E were not open for public use. They were reserved, they were like some kind of multicast and unicast, and they could only be used for some research purposes. the only classes were available were A, B, and C, and there were a different pricing criteria for all of them, and you will have to purchase the IP as per, like there were some restrictions also if you have to go and purchase those IP based upon the classes. But what is the concept of IP addressing on cloud? It basically it removes the classful IP addressing, and we use CIDR notations here. So I will take you to a, just allow me a minute. Yeah. So I will take you to a site after this, which is this particular website, wherein we will be able to see like how can we how can we create a CIDR notation for our network, and how can we identify how many hosts that we can get, and how many what are the networks that we can assign to ourselves. So we'll look upon that after a couple of minutes as well. Yeah, just allow me a minute. Yeah. Now let's take a look at the gateway, and then I think we should be good enough to explore on some details on CIDR. So what is a gateway? So a gateway is just a place that opens up connectivity between two networks. So if I have a network and I have a couple of resources deployed within that network. So they will be able to communicate with each other, but how to ensure that they are able to communicate outside with the internet. So unless and until I place a gateway on that network, and that communication will not happen with the outside world. So a gateway is a medium basically through which two networks can interact with each other. So for example, I have this, if you look at the diagram, this is my cloud network, VPC. You can understand this as my cloud network, under which I have a subnet, which is a subnetwork, and I have a virtual machine. Now on the edge, on the boundary of my network, I place this internet gateway, which opens up the connectivity of my network to the internet. And now the communication from internet can happen very well with the virtual servers that are deployed in my network. So basically a gateway's functionality is to open up the connectivity. Now we have listed here two types of gateway that we have on cloud. First one is internet gateway. So internet gateway basically allows bidirectional access to internet for the network. And what does a net gateway do? Net gateway basically ensures that the connectivity to internet is only outbound, not inbound. For example, my virtual server will be able to connect with internet, but if somebody from the internet would want to connect with my server, he will not be able to do. So that is a functionality that net gateway provides. So generally all the databases that are deployed on cloud are not made public, are not assigned any public, are not allowed any public IP or any public access to the internet, because database is considered to be very secure and should be kept under private subnets as well. So to ensure that, we generally deployed net gateways to ensure the security and privacy of the databases. So that is one of the scenario where net gateway is used. Yeah. So before we go to the lab section, I would want to take you to this website that I had opened up, and then we can take a short break and then start the lab section. So this is CIDR.xyz site that you can even explore post this session to understand more about CIDR and how CIDR, how you can create a network using CIDR. So let me type in here, let me present to you a very simple example of CIDR. So I will select this range, which is 10.0.0.0, and I will select 32, which means that this, I want a network. I want to create a network on cloud, and the first IP should be this. And I have mentioned the here 32, which is network, which is known as network bit. So what is a network bit? You will see that we have 8 octets. You, or if you belong to IT and you are a cloud you have been a cloud student, then you must be knowing that IP addresses have basically 8 octets, right? Sorry, this four octets, under which we have 8 bits. So 32 means 8 into 4 equals to 32. So if you count here from this 0 to this 0, these are 32 bits. So what do I mean by this 32? So I am mentioning here 32, which means my network bit is 32. So which means I do not have any, all of these bits have now been occupied for a network. So this becomes my one network, and what I'm getting is only one IP. I'm only getting one IP that I can use. Now if I bring it to 31, you'll see I am getting two IPs now. And you see that this last option has got grayed out. Just like here is gray and here is also gray. So now on the 31, I'm getting 2. And if I further decrease it, you'll see the count increasing. I'm getting 30. On 30, I'm getting 4 IPs. So similarly, if I bring it to 24, which means now I have the network ID of this, and I'm getting 256 IP addresses, which means that my last octet is completely reserved for host. So in IP address, there are two things. There is a network bit and there is a host bit. So host bit decides how many IPs you can have within that network where you can deploy your virtual servers. And network ID basically defines how many network can you have on this particular range. So you can further explore this website going ahead. So this will give you more insight. But on cloud, what is the range I will show you? On cloud, it provides you a range from /16, which means the highest network that you can configure will provide you 65,000 IPs, and the lowest network that you can configure would be 29, which will provide you 8 IPs. Now, what is the reason it does not provide you a network beyond 29, for example, 30? Because it will give you a 4 IP. And within a network, AWS consumes 5 IPs by itself. You will never get the first 5 IPs in cloud for any network. Why? Because those IPs are used by AWS for managing your subnet. Which one of the IP will go to DNS server, one of the IP will go to DHCP server, and uh, similarly a last IP goes for the broadcast IP, which is generally not used in cloud, but it is generally reserved. So these are some of the IPs that are reserved in AWS and are not made available to you for your usage. Fine. So I've even attached a link here, which is a YouTube link, wherein you can watch this complete video to understand the complete concept behind CIDR. CIDR is a very huge concept, so we will not be able to discuss in-depth details here. Otherwise, it is going to take the complete session. So it is such a huge topic. But I would request you all to visit this YouTube channel and watch this complete video, and you will be able to get complete insight about the CIDR and how it came out to be a different method of allocating IP addresses on cloud. So it is definitely going to help you. Yeah, so I think before starting off for the break for the labs, I think we can take a short break, and once we are ready, then we can proceed ahead with the lab section, wherein we are going to we are going to perform this particular lab. Just to give you a quick background, we are going to create two networks, and we are going to create a subnet within each of these two networks, which will be two different networks, and two subnets within each network. And then we are going to establish connectivity to internet by creating internet gateways and connecting to the subnet. And then we will set up route tables, as I show you that image, how we can direct our traffic from to the required destinations. And then we are going to deploy a virtual server in each of the VPCs, and we'll then connect both of these networks together, and then we'll play with the traffic live. We'll create our own traffic and see how that is getting like from reaching from one point source to the another point between the interconnected networks. So that is going to be the next agenda for the lab. So now I think we can take a short break and then we can start again.
Thanks, Prashant.
I hope all of you are back from the break. So I think now we can progress ahead with the labs. Can you all do a +1 if you think we are going with the right pace? Okay, great. So let me now go to the console. Are you able to see the AWS console now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. So let's go to the VPC service. So this is basically the VPC dashboard. VPC is nothing which is known as virtual private cloud. So this is the dashboard where we get all the networking components and functionalities that we can use. So if you'll see here, you're getting VPCs, subnets, route table, internet gateways, and a whole lot of options like net gateways, peering connection, endpoints. So there is a lot to the networking section on AWS, but today we are going to focus on the fundamentals only, and this is network ACS that I talked of during one of the slides. Then we have firewalls explicitly as well, and then virtual private network. We have something known as transit gateways, then other options, traffic mirroring. So there are a lot of options. So, but before I progress on that part, let me showcase you what we are going to do now. So we are going to create a network, and then we are going to create a sub network. Maybe we can create a one network or maybe two network within this particular network. Then we are going to establish an internet gateway which will allow access to this network to the internet. Right. So this is going to be our architecture that we are going to accomplish today. Okay. This is going to be my subnet 1. This is going to be my subnet 2. And this is going to be my network 1. I hope you are all able to catch up till now. And then what we are going to do is we will deploy a virtual machine like in one of the subnets. Then we will also deploy network 2. This is going to be our network 2. And then we'll do the similar steps here. We'll deploy a network 1, subnet 1. This will be our subnet 2. But we won't open internet gateway here. We will only open internet gateway here, but not here, so that we are able to discriminate between both of these networks and see how this is performing, how this is performing. But what we are going to do here is we are definitely going to connect both of these networks together by a peering connection. So peering is nothing. Peering simply means that this network can look into this network and this network can look into this network. So which means a virtual server deployed in this particular subnet will be able to communicate to a virtual server which is deployed in this particular subnet or within this network basically. So which means the resources of this network will be able to communicate to the resources of this network. But if we don't have this peering, we will not be able to do this thing. Now, the other thing that we are going to do, which is also important, is to set up routing tables for this network. So we will set up a few routing tables, routing rules, And we will also need to set up some of the routing rules here. So now this is the architecture that we are fundamentally going to deploy on our AWS Cloud. I hope you are all excited to see how we are going to deploy this architecture, and this is going to be a very good learning for you all. And going forward, you can even deploy your own architectures, you can even customize. So our requirement today would be, let me clear the requirement. So our requirement, for example, let's say is, we have a requirement from customer where customer has requested for us us to deploy a network of, let's say, 2000 servers. He wants a network of 2000 servers. Within, he basically wants this capacity to be distributed across 4 subnetworks. And you can categorize at like this. First one could be your web tier, then other could be your middle tier, and then the last could be your database tier, right? So let's not go into 4. Let's for now keep it simple. Let's keep it 2. So it will be web and database tier only. Now let's come to the cloud console and do this networking portion. So now here we see a create VPC option, right? Let's go and create a VPC. VPC means VPC is just a synonym of network on AWS. So if I select the VPC only, I will give my VPC a name, which will be my VPC A, or I can call it 1 also. Now here I need to give a CIDR range. I think I showed you the CIDR.xyz. Now, based upon that, I can identify, let me go to CIDR.xyz, and as I have already mentioned my requirement, which is to create a network of 2000 servers, right? So how am I going to identify what is going to be my range for the 2000 servers? So now it is giving me only 16 IPs, which means my network can only have 16 servers, which is not definitely not something that I would want. On 24, I am getting 256. So if I take it to 23, I'm getting the double. If I take to 22, I'm getting 1,000. But if I will take it to 21, then only I am getting around 2048 servers, under which 5 will be reserved. So the count that I'll get is 2036 servers I can have within my subnet. So I will use the 21 range here. I will, and one more important part, it is not restricted that you use the 10. You can even select your own range. It could be 172 or it could be 198. It could be anything that you want. So cloud gives you this freedom to have your own networking range, right? So for now, I will select 10 only, and I will put 21 as my network range, which becomes my first IP will start from there, and I will have serially allocated, I will have a series of this range wherein I will get a capacity of more than 2000 IPs. I'm not going with the IP6, I will select IP4 only, and I will create a VPC. Now I have successfully created my network. My network is successfully created, and what do I get with my network? I get a network ID. I get 3 things basically. First one is DHCP, another one is route table, and I'm getting a network ACL. So as I had already told you that some of the IP addresses are reserved, they are not allocated to you. So one of the IP addresses goes for DHCP, another one is consumed by the router, and there is another IP which is consumed as a broadcast address that is not used anywhere, but it is consumed. So now we have created the network. Now we will create subnets within this particular network. And now here you can see the VPC details. Now I will go to subnet, and there is an option to create subnet here. So I will click on create subnet. I will select my VPC that I have created right now. So this is my VPC1. Now again I will give my subnet a name, which will be my VPC1, my subnet 1. So this is going to be my subnet name. Now, as you know, cloud provides you this function, this eligibility to deploy your resources across multiple availability zones, regions. So first, for now, I will use the first availability zone, which is US East 1A in North Virginia. And here now I again need to give a subnet range. The range that right now I created a network of 2000 servers, but now I need to create a subnetwork of how many IPs. So I will try to keep a subnet of around 250 IPs. Okay. So then how can I identify, how can I get 250 IPs? So I might need to use 24 as a count, wherein I am getting 256 IPs, out of which I will be able to use 251. So then here I can select 0.0.0/24. And then when I create the subnet, yeah, now I have my subnet created. And we can have a look of the subnet details here, that it is giving me 251 as available IP addresses. This one is deployed in US East 1A. And yeah, I think there is a route table associated to it and network ACL also associated to it. Okay, fine. So now what we have created so far is we have created this network and we have created a subnet. Let us also create this particular subnet too. So we can again go to the create subnet portion, come to select my VPC, and then here we can select my VPC1, under which I have created this subnet 2. And now I will select an different availability zone, not 1A, but 1B. But now I need to define the range again. What if I select the same range and I create a subnet? It will not allow me to create subnet because it is telling that the first 256 IPs have now already been allocated to another subnet, which was subnet 1. So it is not giving me this range now. How it will give me this range? I will have to change this 0 to 1. So now you see that my last usable IP becomes this, and now I will get 256 count again. So I will have to change this to 1. And now when I create, so I've successfully created another subnet, which is my VPC1 subnet 2. So these other subnets are you can avoid, you can skip them, ignore them. Just focus on this one. So if I come right here, it is telling me I am getting 251, and the first IP of this subnet is going to be this. From there, I am going to get another 256 IP addresses. Now, if I were to create a subnet 3, then I will have to again change this 1 to 2, and then I will get the third slot, which will have 256 IP again. I hope you are able to understand so far the CIDR concept. So now I think I have so far created this network. We have created 2 subnets, and now we need to create an internet gateway and attach it to the subnet so that our resources within are able to access the internet world. How can we do that? We will come to the internet gateways, because until and unless you don't connect an internet gateway to your network, your servers can communicate internally, but they will not be able to communicate outside to the internet. So for that, we need it. So I will create my VPC1 IGW, which means Internet Gateway. Let's create an Internet Gateway. And right now it's telling it is detached. If I go to action, I will get this option attached to VPC. I can select my VPC, which it is showing one of the VPCs where Internet Gateway is not attached. So then I click attach internet gateway, and successfully now it's showing attached. So now this VPC that I have created is now open to internet. And if I detach this again from here, the internet communication will stop. So I think this particular architecture is complete. Now we will do the same steps for the other network. The only difference will be we will not deploy an internet gateway, but yeah. So let me come to the VPC again and let me create another VPC which I will call as my VPC 2, and here I will take a different range here which will be, let me take 172.0.0.0/21, which will give me 2000 IP addresses. Default, everything default. I created a VPC. I got it created successfully. Now I will create a subnet. Again, I will select my VPC2 here, and then I will give my VPC, my subnet a name to my subnet 1. My subnet 1 for my VPC2. I will select availability zone again as US1A. I will have to define CIDR again /24, which will give me 250 IPs. I created the subnet. I need to create another subnet here. I will give again a name, my subnet 2. Subnet 2 under VPC 2. Availability zone, I will select different again this time. And again, I need to change the slot here, which will not be 0.0 but 1.0/24. And you can definitely take help from all this the CIDR.xyz if you're not able to calculate yourself. It is better to save time and use this portal. Now I will create the subnet again. So now I have this architecture also ready at its place, wherein we have created the network, we have created the subnet. So fundamental architecture is ready. Now let's do peering between both the network. So how can we establish peering? So we have to go to the peering connection, create a peering connection here, and I need to give a name to my peering connection. Let me call it a connect VPC1 to VPC2. And then I have to select a requester VPC. For example, let me select my VPC1 as a requester, which is basically requesting VPC2. No, transit gateway is not the same thing. So let's not get into transit gateway right now. Otherwise, you might get confused. Let's only focus on what we are covering right now. So to keep up the flow and also able to understand the things better, right? We'll take up transit gateway during the Q&A section if that is okay with you. Now we have selected the requester. Now we need to select the VPC acceptor. So acceptor is going to be my VPC2. Okay, and both of these are showing different range. So it needs to be different range, otherwise you will not be able to connect. Can two houses in the same society can have a same address? No. So that is why if you want to go from one house to another, then it must have a different address. So that is why we cannot have same range while we want to peer. Now I will create a peering connection, and what it does is it will basically create a request between requester and acceptor. So how can we set up the final peering? We need to accept the request. So here is accept request. So as soon as I accept the request, my peering connection is active. So now our complete architecture is there. We have set up networks, both of the networks. We have even connected both of the networks now. The peering is at its place. Now the other important thing, the very important thing that we have not done yet is to set up route tables. Now let's see what is the concept of route table and why is it important. We have set up all the peering and all of this, but it won't work. You know, it is not going to work. So to showcase you how the route table works, I will first deploy a virtual machine in subnet 1 and in subnet 1 of VPC 2. So let me come to a dashboard. Let me deploy a virtual server. I think I already have an AMI. AMI is a machine image. I already explained you that in the one of the previous sessions also, I think. So I will call this as my virtual machine 1 from VPC 1 subnet 1, and I will select my network as my VPC 1. I will select my subnet 1 here. I will enable the public IP. I will let the security group be there. And then I think all of the important points have been completed. I can then now launch the instance. Okay, I did not select the key. Yeah. So I think I have launched one of the EC2 instance in subnet 1 of VPC 1. Now I need to launch a similar virtual machine in another VPC, which is VPC 2. So I can directly go from here, image and templates, and there is an option launch more like this. So as soon as you click this, you will again get this launch template. You just need to edit the details, which where I will edit as VM1, VPC2, and subnet 1. I will keep it the same. I can select the key from here, which is 30 October, and then I will select VPC1 to VPC2, and subnet would be my subnet 1 of VPC2. Okay, then I can create a new security group here, no worries. Yeah, I think all of the other settings are fine only. Now I can create another instance which is getting created in the other. So this particular box, this is a server that I have deployed here, and there's another server that I have deployed here, and both of these are having same settings, right? Now we will try to connect this particular server to this particular server, and it should connect. Why? We have access to internet, we have connected both of the networks together. When I want to connect this particular server to this particular server, it should be able to connect. We have everything in place. Yeah. Let me refresh the page, and I think it should be running in a couple of minutes. Although I think we have already got the public IP assigned. So meanwhile, let me showcase you the see this server is in VPC1. So for VPC1, what did we do? We opened the internet gateway, but for the VPC2, we did not open internet gateway. So let's look at this basic difference for now. I will try to access this server through the SSH console. Let me go to the SSH and put this public IP here, select today's key. And then if I do OK, let me take a look at the security. Yeah. So right now, when I am trying to access the SSH, I am not able to SSH. Can you guess why? Even though everything is in its place, but still I am not able to access. I have the key, I have everything, I have the IP address now, and the server is also running, but I am not able to access. The reason is that I have not configured the route tables. So I will have to go to the route tables. I will go again to the VPC dashboard. And as soon as I go to the VPC, I will come to the route table. And I need to identify which route table is there for my VPC1. So as you can see the details here, my VPC1, this is the route table. When I go inside the route table and see what is the routing here. So right now, the only routing is that if my traffic has to approach this destination, then it has to be directed locally. It will be interdirected internally, but there are no rules. There are no other rules like for accessing for the traffic that is from internet, for the traffic that is coming from other network. There are no rules, and that is why I am not able to access my server on SSH console. So unless and until I add a route for internet, which is this code 0.0.0.0/0, and how do we configure internet route using the internet gateway, right? We need to select this internet gateway here. So there are two things. First, you create an internet gateway, you attach it to the network, but that is not the complete procedure. The complete procedure happens when we set up the route tables, we select the internet gateway ID here, and then we save the changes. Now I have the other entry here which tells if my traffic is getting directed to internet, then it should pass through the internet gateway, and now it is active. Now let me come to the console and do a refresh. You see, now as soon as I perform this step, I am now getting this option to log in, to mention my user ID, and within a couple of minutes I am now inside my virtual machine, right? So I hope that that was interesting for you and how you can do the same in your environment. Now, as I have done this part, I need to, my aim was to connect with this virtual machine. But as I had already mentioned that we don't have any internet gateway here. So similarly, this machine, if we try to access this machine through SSH console, we will not be able to access. So how can we access it? We can try to ping this machine from here. We can try to do telnet from here. So let's do these couple of steps, and let's first of all see if this our other server is basically actively running or not. So now both of the servers are running. So this is our VPC2 server. Let me capture the IP address, and just to showcase you, let me try to connect to this particular server as well. But we won't be able to connect to this particular server because of the same reason that I just showcased, which is we don't have we have not opened internet gateway to this particular network, and that is why you don't see any user prompt here, right? And we will not be able to. So I will close this window for now. But what we can do is we can still try to ping that particular server from here. So there is a tool known as Telnet, but for that I will need to download the tool, install and utils. So meanwhile, the tool is getting downloaded. Let me set up the peering connection. Sorry, the peering is already there, but I need to set up route table. I need to go into this route table, and I need to edit the routes. So similarly, I have added a route for internet traffic using internet gateway. I need to add a route for the peering as well. If you have created peering request and you have even accepted it, even the traffic will not go from one location to another unless and until you tell the router how to direct the traffic for appropriate destinations. So now what we had configured was our other network, which is this one. This is having a range of 172, not 10. So that we need to specify here, 172.0.0.0/21. Now I need to select peering here. I will save this. So we have successfully configured this route table. Now we also need to configure this route table. So similarly, we will do the same set of steps for that particular route tables also for the VPC2. So right now, we can definitely not add internet gateway here because we have not created in the first place. What we can do is we can tell it if there is some traffic that is supposed to be directed to this particular network, then direct it through the peering connection. So now I save it. Now we have a bidirectional peering in place. Network 1 can travel here, network 2 can access here. So now I think everything is there. We have the server here, we have the server here. Now let's try to do a telnet. Is there anyone in the audience who doesn't know what a telnet is, what a ping is? So let me capture the private IP of that particular instance. This is the private IP address for the VPC2 server. And let me do a telnet of that particular server, and 22 is our SSH port. So I'm trying to telnet. Okay, the telnet command is not found. Okay, I'm sorry, I did not install telnet. So now I have installed the telnet successfully. Let me try this command again. So yes, now what is the result of telnet? So here is the result of telnet, that my current IP address is this one. Okay, so I was trying to connect with the server that is in the network 2, VPC2, and now it is telling me that I could connect successfully to this particular server, which means I did a telnet from this machine to this machine and it was successful, right? So what happened in the background? So this request went through the peering connection to the network 2. The server IP communicated to the server IP, which is 172 here, and then checked if the port 22 is open or not. So port 22 was open. Similarly, we can do a ping here. Let me exit here. Yeah, so similarly, we can do a ping here. Let's ping it 4 times of that particular server. So yeah, one more thing. So it will not be able to ping because for ping, we have to open certain firewall rules. So I will need to go to the security. I will have to go to the security group. And if you'll see here, there are a couple of one rule mentioned here. So if you want to ping, then there is this option, custom ICMP IP4. So once you enable ICMP, which is like some kind of communication protocol, once you enable this protocol, then you can ping, you can receive ping traffic. So now if I do this thing, yeah, now you see I am able to ping to that particular server and I was able to ping successfully 4 times. So this is how you can even set up your own network. You can deploy your subnets network architecture. So in today's lab, you see we did a couple of actually a lot of things. We deployed network, we then deployed subnets, we configured route tables, we configured interconnectivity using peering, and then we opened internet gateway. We played around like if we are able to access the internet or not. For example, yeah, but still we are yet to try one thing that we will try. And then our intercommunication is also working fine. We are able to ping between both the networks. But had this peering connection not there, we will not be able to do a single task between both of these networks. We will not be able to ping, either we will not be able to telnet. So now one thing that we can do, as you know that this particular machine is not having internet gateway here. So it cannot connect to internet. But how can we connect to this machine then? It is here, but how can we connect to this machine then? We cannot connect to through internet because there is no internet gateway. We can connect to this machine using this machine. Let me showcase you this thing. So with the SSH protocol, if I give this IP address here, so it is telling me that yes, I can connect, but it is denying me because there I don't have the key right now. So yeah, but using SSH command, you can even connect to that particular machine internally through the other server that is connected to the internet gateway. So I think we covered a lot of areas today. I think all of you were able to catch up and understand the networking components very well today. If you were able to catch up with my flow, do a +1. If you thought that, if you think that all of this that I showcased today was give you some kind of learning and you can take back home and practice this yourself, do your own networking, create your own architecture, own networks and subnets, multi-tier architecture, deploy your servers accordingly, and then set up interconnectivity. So this is just a demo that you saw. You can take this demo to a full-fledged version yourself, and this is how you can even explore a lot of things on cloud. You can deploy you can engineer your applications, your networks, and you can do a whole lot of stuff on AWS Cloud. So good to see positive feedback. And still, if you feel there is something that we missed today and something that we can improve upon, you can even let that know. So I will now share. Yeah, so I think we now have a question and answer session. So if you have any queries, you can definitely let us know. But meanwhile, let me showcase you the agenda for the next session. So the next session will be around the access and authentication management, how we can secure the authentication on AWS using the service which is known as IAM, Identity Access Management. We'll see how what are access keys and roles. And right now we are using AWS through this graphical user interface. We'll learn to see how we can programmatically use AWS using the command line interface and how we can do all the things that we are doing through graphical interface. We can do the same things through command line interface. And we'll also cover the object storage, simple storage service, and we'll do a couple of labs also we'll launch a S3 object storage website, static website, and see how that can be useful for various business requirements. So you need not take a new key. You can even manage with your old key, but it is better to have a new key. And actually, I'm used to that habit. So I have a new key. Otherwise, there is no superstition in that. And then we'll do some kind of project wherein we will create a S3 bucket and we'll create an IAM role granted to an EC2 instance and then see how our EC2 virtual server is able to access the S3 bucket content in a secure manner. So that is definitely something that we are going to do in our next session. So meanwhile, now if we have any questions, you have any questions for us, feel free to ask. I think
Can we also have the feedback form for
sure.
users to submit feedback as well?
Yeah, meanwhile, let me share the feedback link on chat and I request all of you to please take this 1 minute of your valuable time to submit this feedback that is going to help us improve going forward. And otherwise, if some of you have questions, you can definitely put it on chat. We will be more than happy to answer them for you.
So if you can please fill out the feedback while we answer the questions.
So Shubham,
Your
to
feedback is
answer
very
your
important for us.
query that you had asked specifically during the starting of the session, what is the difference between network access control list and a security group? And I think this is one of the best questions that you have asked. So before I explain that technically, I will explain that using a real life scenario. So just like I gave you that example of network access control is that there is a security guard that sits outside of the complete society and ensures that every traffic that is coming within that society is basically secure. So what does that mean? That the security guard that is sitting outside the society is taking care of the entire network, right? Society can host multiple houses wherein there can be numerous peoples living inside. So a society is a very huge network of houses and people, which is taken care by a security guard sitting on the main gate, which you can call as network access control list. Now there is a different scenario wherein we have something known as security group on AWS Cloud. So what is security group? Security group is something that a security, like if you must have seen some bungalows of chief ministers or very high profile personalities, they will always have a security guard outside their home. Now I'm not talking about society. I'm not talking about the bigger entity. I'm not talking about any network. I'm just talking about a single house. If that single house belongs to a very high profile person and some security is required, something is like some privacy is required, then there will be a security guard. For example, Amitabh Bachchan, he will always have a security guard outside his home, right? That security guard can be called as a security group, who is basically ensuring that your virtual machine, which is known as EC2 instance on AWS Cloud, that security group is basically responsible to ensure that all the traffic that is going within your virtual server is secure, is safe. But what is network access control list? It ensures that whatever the traffic that is going within your network is safe and secure. So in the layman terms, the difference is network access control list ensures that the traffic in your network should be secure, and security group ensures that whatever traffic that is going within your EC2 instance, within your virtual server is secure. So that is the difference. And please post any other questions that you may have on the chat box. Okay, so if we do not have any other questions for now, then I will move to the next slide. Yeah, I think thank you all
Then thank you,
for
Prashant.
joining the
Thank you very
session
much.
today.
We can probably end this session with another mind relaxation technique if Dr. Raki can help us relax our mind so that whatever we've learned, it'll absorb and sink in. Thank you, Raki.
Everybody, let's disconnect from the session. The information that we gathered from the session, let's exercise our power of disconnecting in a second. Keep the session and the information at a distance. From whom we are. Let the entire last hour and a half be at a safe distance from who I am. Let the entire day from morning until now be at a safe distance from my true existence, my inner self. Disconnect from the external, reconnect to the internal. Let us reconnect to our inner being of peace and happiness again. the space of emptiness, the space of beingness, rich in qualities. The mind will quickly rush and try to connect to many things: the session, family, someone's words that pricked us, some situation that bothered us. But we have the power to disconnect from it and deserve the life of relaxation, an empowering life. And in this inner state, everything can be achieved. A peaceful, happy mind, relaxed mind is very content and very powerful. In the clarity of silence, the mind can solve all situations and problems. Disconnect is the key. Not giving importance to anything but our inner state of silence is the key. All the external turbulences are external. They are separate from me. Let's not identify with them. Let's not flow into that turbulence. Let's maintain a safe distance from the flood of thoughts. It is not difficult to do this because this is our natural state. And anyone can experience it by choosing to disconnect, by choosing to not pay attention or give importance to it. Every second in our life, every moment, we have this choice, which we consciously can make. Thus far, we may not be aware that we have a choice, but now we are. Disconnect from anything that's negative, any disturbance, and reconnect with my inner silence. It is easy. It can be done. Just with one determined thought. Yes, I can. Is anything more important to us than this inner state of silence, contentment, happiness, independent of any relation, any profession, any situation, any possession? Is this inner state of freedom, this treasure of silence and happiness and contentment, is anything more important than this? Is it? I can get the best job, a high-paying job. I can go shopping, spend money, spend time with friends. Temporary happiness, yes. At the cost of, again, the mind chasing it again and again. A bondage that we create. Not that we shouldn't enjoy life, but we should not let external things affect our inner state of being. Whether we have a job or not, whether we have satisfying, fulfilled relationships or not, whether we have all the material possessions we need or not. It doesn't matter because they all only give us happiness. And if I learn the skill to disconnect from anything that disturbs us, this happiness is already within me. It comes from a state of deep silence. It comes from disconnection from the external. Let me give the importance to the right things, to who I truly am, to our own inner power, our inner being. Let's conclude today's session. Have a good evening, a good night to everyone. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raki. Thank you, all your participants, for joining. If you have any questions, please do let us know. If you are looking for any specific topics, do let us know as well. See you next week. Thank you.